Today should have seen one of the largest convergence of Caribbean nationals on the famous Brooklyn Parkway. The annual Labor Day celebrations did not happen, all because of COVID-19. The annual Notting Hill Carnival in London was scheduled for last week, but that too was cancelled because of the coronavirus. Another major summer festival which brings together nationals from across the Caribbean is that of the Toronto Carnival. COVID-19 also had that on its list of cancellations. Apart from the fact that people could not get together for social events, there's a dollars and cents side of the equation. Tonight, we have a group of gentlemen who know Grenadian and Caribbean culture better than most. I am pleased to present to you legendary Grenadian broadcaster, a man of the cultural arts himself, Harold Pysadee, who has been living in New York for more than 30 years. Grenadian journalist Toro Depradine is author of The White Frock and Coal Dust. And that tells you he has cultural blood running through his veins with his Carnage roots intact, although he now resides in Toronto, Canada. Tonight, we also skip across the continent to get a perspective on one of Europe's biggest Caribbean cultural fiestas, the Notting Hill Carnival. We present Pepe Francis, who has Grenadian and Trinidadian roots and is leader of the famous Ebony Steel Band in London. And we will make a second stopover in Toronto, Canada, to get a perspective of one of the bigger players on the cultural stage there. I'm pleased to introduce our fourth panelist, Mr. Chris Alexander. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Festival Management Committee, which organizes the Toronto Caribbean Carnival. To you, our loyal audience, I present tonight's distinguished panel as we look at COVID and culture, crossing boundaries, breaking barriers. This is Beyond the Headlines. Hello and good night and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. I'm your host, Odette Campbell. Our guests have been identified, they have been introduced to you, and we're going to cross to our panel at this time and say good evening to them all.
Good evening, Odette. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Odette.
Good evening.
Yeah, and we have one gentleman saying good evening, but what the world needs to be told, he has to be saying good morning. Pepe, we're sorry to wake you up. It's 1:35 UK time?
Yeah, roughly.
Roughly. But I hope you got some sleep. Right. So we're going to be talking about COVID and its impact on culture. But as good journalists, we have two bona fide journalists on the panel this evening. There's an issue which we need to touch on a little bit. We got the news over the weekend that Mrs. Phyllis Cord had passed on. And I'm going to ask broadcaster Harold Pysadee and journalist Toro Depradine their thoughts on this. We know it was carried in the news. We saw some of the feedback that was making the rounds on social media. Toro, we're starting with you.
Oh, Mrs. Phyllis Cord. I worked at Radio Free Grenada from 1979, just after the revolution. And Mrs. Cord was appointed Secretary for Information, basically the day-to-day Minister of Information. And she had governmental responsibilities for the radio station. And first of all, she brought in a lot of trainers. The PRG realized that the media workers needed training, so we brought in people like Agri Brown from Jamaica, Dick Henderson from Trinidad, and we also had local trainers like Lou Smith and other people. So in that sense, Phyllis brought in training. She really wanted the best for the media. She was tough, I must admit. I remember our first encounter with her. There was some issue in the newsroom, and she summoned myself and two other reporters, and then Keith Welsh was one of the other persons. And after the meeting, Keith said, we went to Butler House. And after the meeting, Keith said, man, this was so tough on us. When we looked through the window and looked at the town of St. George, everywhere looked dark, you know? But she played a part in terms of trying to lift the standard of the media. And we must remember her for the role she played in that respect.
All right, and Harold?
Also, Odette, the leadership role she played in the National Women's Organization She was Hercules in that organization in Grenada. She brought fruitfulness and she brought sense of worth to the women in Grenada in that organizational structure, and defended the rights of women, and played a part in educating women on their rights and responsibilities as women in Grenada. And during that period, she would be remembered. As Toro said, yes. She also, in the media, she also played a part in the formation of the Free West Indian newspaper, and played another Herculean role in that process. But on the other hand, she was also a vilified character, because Bernard Cord, I think, was disdainfully accepted as the deputy political leader of the revolution, of the PRG, because there were folks in Grenada who felt he didn't get the blows like Maurice Bishop got, Eunice Whiteman got, Kenrick Radix got, and so they accepted him with some form of derisions, if that would be the best word to use. And she, being the wife of him, obviously was a receiver of that perception by a host of Grenadians, I think. And she was also accused of firing some members in the media because they were perceived as being Garyites, and she was also perceived as coming over as a person with a brash character. And as a result, you have that two impressions of her memory. But one thing I remembered, and I never thought I'd get the opportunity to say it on this broader medium of Phyllis Cord, was as a young boy of 16 years old, and being on the radio in continuity in the studio. Ever so often the phone will ring while I'm on the air, and when I pick it up, hello, it'll be, Pysadee, this is Phyllis Cord, and then she say, comrade, you're not pushing the promo about the rally enough. And I was there like, okay, because in those days we had this long sheet of the programming list, and I was following the list, as was given to me, but she felt that the promos for the rallies were not pushed enough. And so she called the continuity directly to speak to the announcers, including myself, as the comrade. And up to this day, I can hear that voice in my ears, comrade, you're not pushing that promo good enough. And as a little boy of 16 years, very timid, I kept saying to myself, why isn't she calling Peter? Why isn't she calling Camo? Why isn't she calling Turkey? Why is she calling me directly and telling me this? But I never said anything. I just went ahead and pushed it as the amount of time that she so desired. But that's the memory I have of her. So those who remembered her for the role she played with the woman, with the Free West Indian newspaper, as a mentor, a defender of women's rights in the Caribbean, will have one thing to say of her. And of course, the others who were at the brunt of the brashness and the harshness, those who were terminated by her, as reported, because they were perceived as Garyites, what have you, would also have their say. But, as I said, irrespective of what you think of her, no one knows what peace individuals come to when they're nearing the end between themselves and the Maker. So I would want to wish her, a peaceful transition, and may she rest in peace.
May she rest in peace. Now to the business of the day. We have built tonight's program, COVID Cancels Culture. In February, Trinidad and Tobago canceled its carnival. We had several Caribbean islands, including St. Lucia, Grenada, canceling their carnival celebrations as well. Today should have been a big day on the Eastern Parkway in New York. Labor Day got canceled. Notting Hill last week, we saw one little lone reveling soldier trying to make it look as though everything was everything. That was his way of dealing with it. And then Toronto, Caribana, the carnival activities in Toronto have also been cancelled. So let's start with Toronto. Chris Alexander is with us. Chris, what's it like for your organization having to just sit and fold your arms?
It was not so much of a folding of the arms, but literally figuring out how we pivoted from the COVID. We know it touched the world, so it's not just Toronto, and we had to make sure that we were ready for it. Nobody wanted to cancel, and we were hoping till just the last moment when we had to make that decision that things will change. It didn't, and we had in a very short time to make decisions that will cause us not to get off the map, but to work through the process. We did a number of things that I'll talk to throughout the process, but we eventually came up with a program which we call the Virtual Road and Virtual Carnival, which was a series of events over a month. And planning for it took a while from the time we shut down to eventually the day of the parade, which was supposed to be August 1st. There's a series of things that happened, and I'll talk a little bit about it as we go through the process.
Okay, good. So we're going now to UK, and we have there Mr. Augustine Pepe Francis, MBE. And so, Pepe, we know that you're big with the Pan movement. Notting Hill Carnival was one of the biggest events in Europe. And how has that been impacted?
Well, it was impacted. And by the way, the lone carnivalist you saw on the road, his name is Michael, and he's a Grenadian. And he decided that he was coming out on his own and having his carnival as he normally do. He's a person who travels the carnival all over the Caribbean. He's in Trinidad, he's in Grenada, and he did his thing on Carnival Monday. In terms of Carnival, I mean, it was a big miss. I've never seen West London so quiet over the last 50 odd years. But we tried our best, and we came up with a virtual carnival over the weekend, starting with a panology on the Saturday and carried on right through till the Monday. And we involved also Carnival Calypsonians from the Caribbean as well, doing performances that was broadcast throughout the UK. So it was, we made the most of what we could, bearing in mind what we had lost this year. And I hope that next year we will be back on the streets of Notting Hill.
That's something we want to touch on, what the future looks like. Let's go back to New York, and let's go back to Harold. Harold, today would have been the day when there was a lot of activity on the Eastern Parkway.
Yes, and like Pepe said, in New York, had no choice but to go virtual. There was a virtual Brassarama, Brass Fest. And today there was the virtual, well, I don't know how to call it, because basically it was individuals dressed up in the various costumes from various islands, jumping up and playing a mass, some of them in their living room, some of them in their basement. Don't know how much of an effect it has had in terms of the amount of people watching such. I don't know how much has it been on people's minds to really take the time to look at virtual carnivals socially. I don't know. But nothing can replace the actual street parade. I mean, if you call it carnival, it has to be on the streets. There's nowhere else to put carnival but on the streets. So it was like a painful reality that we just had to accept here in Brooklyn, New York. There was the congregation of some folks this morning and over the weekend on the side streets in front of some stores in Brooklyn, small snippets of people just jumping up and down, so to speak, having some fun, but nothing on the road. I mean, even though you were thinking of going on the road, you couldn't get away with it like they did in Grenada, because under normal circumstances, the Juve morning, which is concentrated on the Flatbush and Caton areas in the East Flatbush section of Brooklyn, they would cordon off the road to give the space on the street to masquerade as the jab will do on Juve morning. That wasn't there. So you couldn't just take it upon yourself and do that, because the police wouldn't be that friendly as they were in Grenada here in New York. So they wouldn't take that chance. So we had little snippets of it on the side streets and what have you, little backyard gatherings and what have you. But all in all, no street parade, no masquerade, and the reality is we just had to live with it. Hopefully next year things will get back to normal and we'll have the real parade on Eastern Parkway. But it was really surreal to see pictures of Eastern Parkway with just normal traffic going up and down the parkway on this Labor Day Monday. But the reality of it is that these are the times in which we live, so we just have to deal with it. But I would suspect, or not would suspect, I know that like in Canada, like in London, the carnival associations would, incur big losses as a result of that. No revenue, of course. And so it will be a Herculean task come next year to really get things back on track to organize the next festival. But like everything else, we are resilient people, and we will come back. We will hit back and get back on the road, because irrespective of what we are confronted with, life goes on.
Life goes on indeed. And Toro, you being a writer, you've been observing, you've been listening. What have you heard from people in terms of what do they miss?
Right. And just before I get into the what I would call the social loss, I would just like to give a little background. You notice we have been saying Toronto Carnival. And for some people, some old-timers, people who have known Toronto Carnival, they will have known it as Caribana. And, everywhere there is a carnival, there is controversy, legal wranglings, accusations of theft against organizers and judges. And Toronto has been no exception. So when the festival started in 1967, it was the 100th anniversary of the independence of Canada. And a group of Caribbean people, including Grenadians, such as the late Roman Pitt, he was a judge. He died earlier this year. Dr. Jean Augustine, former member of parliament. These were some of the people who got together and organized Caribana, the carnival, they call it Caribana, and it was organized under the auspices of a group called the Caribbean Cultural Committee. And in 2006, the city of Toronto, which provided most of the funding for the festival, was dissatisfied with the way the festival was being operated financially and otherwise. So they withdrew the funding. And the funding was passed to the group called the Festival Management Committee. And Chris Alexander is the chief operating officer of the Festival Management Committee. So when you hear Toronto Carnival, it's basically the same thing, but the name Caribana cannot be used by the Festival Management Committee. The name is trademarked. And the FMC, the Festival Management Committee, are not permitted to use the name Caribana. So they have called it the Toronto Caribbean Carnival. In terms of the social loss, Toronto is a very cold city. And people living in the city anxiously look forward to meeting family and friends in July and August each year. Some people visiting. And for example, myself, I know there are some Grenadians that I only see them perhaps once a year at Panorama. People like Tony Henry. His family operated an ice cream shop on the Esplanade many years ago. And the ice factory where the post office is at Burns Point. And Arthur Code, who was the former arranger of Angel Harp. And we missed that kind of get-together for 2020. So I think in that sense, there has been a social loss. There has also been a loss to small businesses. For instance, part of my professional job is contributing to 2 Caribbean-oriented newspapers. And they generate a lot of revenue from advertising during that carnival period. And their revenue has seriously plummeted because of COVID and because of the cancellation of the Toronto Carnival this year. So there has been a serious loss at 2 levels, socially and economically.
Wow. Succinctly put there, Toro, and let's continue with the Toronto Carnival. I have to get used to that phrase. So Chris, you mentioned having gone virtually. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the Carnival is the largest of any of the festivals in Canada and brings in an economic impact of over 400 million, brings in over 1 million people. It's a lot of people that comes to Canada, basically from over the world, throughout the world, Caribbean, everywhere else. So our tourist industry, we bring a large organic tourism for the country, federally, provincially, and for the city of Toronto. Hotels are filled, restaurants, transportation, you name it. Businesses, as Toro talked about early on, is impacted to a great extent because they depend a lot on what happens throughout this time on the Carnival. Not being able to do that, it was a big down for most of the people in the city. Not only for us as Caribbean people, because you would think, okay, it's a Caribbean Carnival, so it's only Caribbean people that's affected. Not at all. The city felt it, and the city felt a huge blow because of the economic impact that we as a cultural festival bring into Canada every single year in the city of Toronto. And a matter of fact, because of that, people really wanted to make sure that something was happening. It took a team of people, we call a virtual team, and I'll recognize them throughout the evening, that brought this together. We had to make sure that stakeholders, a number of people had to participate in this event, and we did it over a 4-week period. Now, the planning for that obviously is much longer than 4 weeks, but it was a 4-week digital presentation. We did a week of Junior Carnival, 2 weeks of Mass, Pan, and Calypso, and then the last week we did the team did what we call a Carnival. We culminated to the end, which was a virtual road. The activity was done on a daily basis. We had events like a number of critical events that we tried to bring to the forefront through social media, through the website, and a number of different areas. So there were interviews, local and international interviews. We had presentation from stakeholders, literally performance, service providers, and there were tributes that took place over that period of time that literally brought the Carnival to life. It provided content for promotions and for branding. So a lot happened with that virtual team, literally getting information out. It's a lot of work behind the scenes to make it happen, but it was a diverse group of events that really flowed through the virtual month, as we called it, for that period of time. So they provided a digital calendar. They engaged experts in a number of areas like social media, and executed over that period of time. That virtual literally was something that was needed, and we engaged, and when we got to the virtual road, which was at the end, it literally was a whole virtual road, meaning that it started from Australia, coming right through a number of the countries like London, Trinidad, Grenada was involved in the virtual road. In fact, one of the events through Missy Christie, I think you know about that program in Grenada, we did Upstage TV, an event with Upstage TV for Jab Juve. So we included people like Talcree, Worst Ways, Jab King, and a number of their performers in Grenada. We did that also. We had a virtual Pan, which was Pan from Chuddsville. I think it was Pan Alive with Earl Pierre and his team. And we did a number of steel pan throughout the Caribbean, throughout across Canada and in the US and other places. So we involved people from different parts of the world to come in and join us in Toronto also. And then we did some calypso. So with the genres of the music, the pan, the mass, and the calypso, we had all that taking place with the virtual carnival, and at a very high level, making sure that social media, whether it was Twitch or Facebook, Instagram, and the website, YouTube. There's a number of things that we did over that period of time to make sure it went through. And we had a team of 6 or 7 people, some Grenadians, Trinidadians, and so that literally some people from Guyana also that was part of that team, literally bringing it to life to make sure that we had an amazing virtual event taking place, but it was over a month. It wasn't just the weekend, it was a literal flow of events taking place through that period of time. So London, Caribbean, you know.
So Chris, let me come back to you, but I think while we're on virtual, let me just go to Pepe. Pepe, I think Notting Hill tried to do or executed a virtual carnival as well?
Yes, we did. Yes,
and
we did.
how did that go? And I'm wondering, from the organizer's point of view, you tried to get something out to the people, but how do you think it was received? Harold was talking about, you know, the fact that nothing can beat Carnival being on the streets.
Well, that's a given, but in view of the situation and the fact of what's happening at the moment, I think the virtual Carnival went down very It's something a lot of people stayed home and watched. A lot of people had parties in their backyard and put up screens to watch over the weekend, and it covered all the elements of Notting Hill Carnival. So it was very well received and very well done. And as a matter of fact, I think Notting Hill Carnival gained quite a lot from this virtual carnival because a lot of sponsors came on board to assist with this virtual carnival, and they're ready now for the real thing next year. So I think we've come a long way with it in terms of virtuality.
And Toro made a very powerful point. I'll remember it for a very long time to come. And Harold, I'm coming to you because there was an article put out by CNN today which notes that Labor Day celebrates America's labor movement and the blood, sweat, and toil of its workers. Never mind the last-minute barbecues, bargains, and beach days. Mondays mark the unofficial end of summer. It's more like New Year's Day than New Year's Day really. The day after Labor Day is a time to reset, to return to life's ordinary rhythms, to punch the clock and ring the school bell. And it notes that for 3 days, time and responsibility suspended. These are festive events, weekend get-togethers, backyard cookouts, family reunions, short road trips, and coast-to-coast travel. In the New York context, Harold, how do you sum up the social loss?
Well, the social loss is a big loss because of the congregation. You cannot have too much people congregating in one place for any amount of time. But remember that the Labor Day came about not because of the West Indian American Day Parade. Came about so that the unions would have speeches to highlight the workings of the unions, what they have achieved, the plight of the workers, and also for a day for the family to get together, as you said, to go on the beaches and have fun. That is why even though the West Indian American Day Carnival activity was canceled this year, Juve Morning canceled this year, you couldn't cancel the holiday because the holiday itself, the Labor Day holiday, is not because of the West Indian American Day Parade. So even though you cancel the parade, the holiday is still there. Some families, you can still go out to the park and congregate and have some fun and go to the beaches, taking into consideration the restrictions because of COVID, and have some fun. You can have your little barbecues and stuff in your backyard. So families, I think lots of families would take the opportunity to really spend time together during this weekend because of the cancellation of the festivities. So I think in terms of social gathering from a family perspective, I don't think it will hamper too much as opposed to social gatherings amongst us West Indians. We like the backyard, the basement, and the cookouts and all of that. Well, because of the social distancing restrictions, that part of it severely hampered. And
if I could go, Chris, the CNN article, we have Dr. Sonia Lemolsky of the Boston University, the University of California, Riverside, she says the seasons, they're kind of the transitions, and the seasons are all feeling a little different. Human beings really need a kind of structure and ritual and sort of those changes as they look forward to a new year. I've often heard my family in New York say, well, girl, once you hear it's Labor Day, you know that it's going to get chilly and the weather is going to change, so you're looking to a new season. What kind of seasonal change you think you're in having to do virtual carnival as opposed to the jump up on the streets?
There is no replacement for the parade on the street or the events we have. And in Toronto, most people, when they think of the carnival in Toronto, they think of an event. Outside of Canada, by the way, you think of the parade. The parade is the final event that literally everything builds up to. In Toronto, it has taken a huge chunk of what happens over the period. People look forward to that period in Toronto because it literally shuts the city down. And so you find not only, as we call it, a West Indian and Caribbean carnival, but if you look at the carnival, it's a diverse group of people in Toronto. Everybody participates. Businesses look forward to it, and different cultures look forward to it. Every single person, you go into the mass bands. We have huge mass bands in Toronto, mass camps in Toronto. Our parade is a massive parade that takes place with 13, 14, 15, 16 bands along the roadside. Just going through, we take a large area of the footprint for Carnival is massive in Toronto in terms of what we do, and we go to different parts of the city in terms of the Junior Carnival, a Panel Live, the Kings and Queens. We have one of the larger Kings and Queens worldwide. I mean, we rival Trinidad and Tobago with a quick King and Queen show in terms of what we do, and we even go there and win sometimes. So literally what happens in Toronto is that it's a time where people look forward to the closing up. We have other events like a national exhibition that takes place after the carnival. But the carnival is the largest of the type that brings foreigners and bring tourists into the city. And so a virtual is keeping it alive. Okay, fine that we can have this happening and people can remember and see what participates, how they can participate. And what we did with virtual this year, we went worldwide. We didn't just do it in Toronto. We involved people from the other parts of the world because they come to Toronto for Carnival also. So we literally did that to make sure it happens, but nothing beats the Carnival on the road. And as a matter of fact, we have different aspects of the Carnival. We do Friday Night Mass, which is something that's new. It's similar to what happens in Grenada, which is a Monday Night Mass. We do that called Friday Night Mass in Toronto. And there's a number of different events that's taking place. Jab Jab, Juve, and a whole bunch of different events that happens in Toronto that brings out the Carnival. And economic impact, when you think about it, is everybody doing the other fetes and the parties that it happens in New York and other places. It's a big thing, the boat rides. And so Toronto comes alive during that period of time. So as you ask the question, can it rival the Carnival itself? No, absolutely not. And everybody's looking forward to make sure that we can get back in. It will probably be different when we go forward later on because I think COVID is going to be around for a while. We have to think about how we pivot, how we move the whole culture in making sure we can continue to do what we do on an annual basis. The planning will have to be more strategic and to follow the laws and stuff like that. But I think it will come back. It will come back great. And Toronto is looking forward to the resurgence of Carnival in the city because it brings the city alive.
Looking forward to the resurgence. And when we come back, after the break, we're going to try to delve into the dollars and cents of it to see how the mass band operators have been impacted. And we would also look at the panmen because we know they play a very important role in the culture of the Caribbean, and we're seeing the common threads ringing through North America and the UK. We'll come back with some pan music from Ebony, and we'll continue the discussion with our panelists this evening. This is Beyond the Headlines. We're crossing geographical boundaries. To stay with us.
Be advised that post-appointment premium or PAP refunds are now ready to be distributed to qualifying former policyholders or FPHs. Premiums to be refunded comprise those in respect of health policies, premiums received after June 18, 2011, life policies, premiums received after surrendered dates or lapsed dates, property policies, premiums received after May 1st, 2010. Please call or email to ascertain whether you qualify for payment. Persons who do not qualify under this phase of refunds shall not be entertained. Payment of these refunds will be made by check during the period of August 10th, 2020 to September 11th, 2020. Payment under the sum of 20 Eastern Caribbean dollars will be paid via cash. Checks can be collected from the BICO office on Yonge Street, St. George's during the hours of 9 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. All FPH are asked to walk with proper identification, for example, national ID, driver's license, or passport, when presenting themselves for payment. Representatives of claimants should present, in addition to their own ID, a notarized letter of authorization from the FPH, a notarized copy of the FPH's ID. Executors of wills should also present notarized copies confirming their standing as executors. If you have any questions, please contact the Judicial Manager on 473-444-5801 or 784-456-2669. or email ruben.john@bdoecc.com. Please note that all COVID-19 health protocols must be adhered when collecting payments.
Welcome to the Surveys platform, consisting of our website, Providers app, and Users app. Whether you are a provider of services or a customer, Surveys has an app for you. Providers can use the Surveys Provider app to reach more customers, improve customer service, and boost their business. Surveys User app gives the public easy, fast, and convenient service and secure payment options for a variety of services. Browse the User app for the services you need, see customer reviews, save your favorite provider, and more. Providers can manage their services from their account or right from within the app. Both apps are available for Apple and Android mobile devices. Download and install them from our website, surveys.app, or from the app stores now.
It's new, innovative, and classy, and a cut above the rest. Your one-stop shop for bathtubs, kitchenette, customized doors and windows, and even a new paint job. We also sell quartz and solid surface countertops. At M&N Hardware, we offer best prices, excellent service, efficiency, and reliability. Visit us at Dusty Highway, Grandin, St. George, or call telephone number 440-6757. M&N Hardware, from foundation to roof. Let's build together.
Are you looking for quality herbs and herbal supplements? Or are you thinking about having a complete body cleanse to jumpstart your health? Then no need to look further. Visit Nirvana Natural Health Clinic, Detox Center, and Natural Health Store. We carry a wide range of herbal products for kidney and gallstone cleansing, male sexual enhancement formulas, asthma and sinusitis, gas and bloating, acid reflux, constipation, arthritis, imbalanced hormones, female health issues, liver cleansing, weight loss, and so much more. Also available, colonic irrigation, holistic health consultations, essential oils, and diffusers. Look out for our online natural health store coming soon. Call 231-6642 for 18-7115 or 449-7753 to find out about our delivery options or to book an appointment. Visit us at Belmont St. George's, close to the Fallage, Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Nirvana Natural Health Clinic. Detox your way to health.
It's what's inside that counts. Inside your house, that is. With Beacon, you can ensure everything inside your home with our Easy Buy contents packages. Just click, match, and buy for maximum peace of mind with minimum fuss. Log on to beacon.co.tt and choose your package today.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. This evening we're looking at COVID and culture. COVID cancels culture is what some people are saying. And we have our panelists from the UK, Toronto, Canada, and New York. And let me just say, Harold, we have a message here on Facebook. Somebody said, Harold, they were on the road, no costumes, but they were on the parkway singing, "When I Dead, Put Jab Jab on My Tombstone." And somebody's thanking Toro for the history lessons. So, Harold, you didn't hear the tunes this morning, or what?
No. But I mean, that whoever congregated there on the Eastern Parkway, that's on a side street or whatever, because you couldn't really, jump up on the street with the traffic and what have you and be parading. So it must have been a cluster. But in the scheme of things, in the total picture of it, it's very, very small. Okay. Very small. So nothing to really rock the boat, so to speak. But in terms of the mass players, the bandsmen, the calypsonians, what have you, in terms of money being lost, feel it for the organization, what the profits potentially that could have been derived from the festivities this year, thinking of it, it will bring a lot of sad faces to the organizers. But operationally, I don't think that a lot of money was lost because of the restrictions that were in place because of COVID. When the restrictions were lifted, you still had restrictions even though you were going outside, so to speak. So the men couldn't congregate for rehearsals. So the mindset to having that fervor and that drive to want to plan would not be there. So as a result of that, I don't think operationally it would have cost too much, because the mindset, I think, was that no one was sure there would be a carnival this year. So who would want to spend all that money to make preparations for something that you're almost certainly was sure was not going to happen? So from that perspective, I don't think so. But the potential revenue is a problem, and it's sad because lots of more food could have been put on the table as a result of that profit.
Right.
But yes, it's looking at the whole scenario. It's a sad case. And if I may, I also wanted to I have a big soft spot for the Calypsonians, as a matter of fact, who basically have not been making almost anything during this COVID period. And as a result, they've felt the brunt. In most of the parties here in Brooklyn, New York, it's Calypsonians singing off a CD in a basement, what have you, and that's where they make the little extra cash. That has been almost, well, of course, non-existent, of course, because of COVID. But even before COVID, there was not much shows for the artists. I saw in Trinidad that this guy Kenny Phillip from WAC 90 FM has a very good show where he invites the Calypsonians to come in, and they will sing live on his TV. And he has a GoFundMe banner, and where you can make donations while the show is going on, and that goes towards helping to pay for the artists. I think it's a very good idea, but I don't see how that's going to work here in New York, because we don't have much Caribbean, not much, but no really Caribbean television stations that is widely viewed that would make such a big difference for something like that. But the artists, it's really, really a hard time for the artists now in this period, and I'm sure it's of course the same for London, Toronto, and what have you. So I feel it for them. It's really a rough period.
Yeah, Pepe, I saw you trying to get in on the discussion just now, and Toro, I want to come to you in a little bit about a comment that Chris made, but let's go to Pepe. I saw him trying to get in on the action just now.
No, I was trying to say to Harold, I was just watching a video this evening. I mean, it's all over social media, a big Juve parade. It might be on a side street, but in Brooklyn. It was like, I would say about 500-600 people. It was massive. And as somebody who goes to New York every year for the past 15 years, I have not missed a Labor Day. I was, envious of seeing that Juve there, because I mainly go for the Juve. I don't really go on the Parkway much. Most days, but on the Monday I will go backyard party or something like that. But my main thing for going to Brooklyn is the Panorama and Juve. And I was very jealous of that this morning when I saw that this evening.
Yeah, because it comes back to the cluster. I mean, if you see that Juve morning on Caton and Flatbush Avenue, when them Grenadians come out to that jab and they hit that street, I mean, it's a massive amount of Grenadians and other Caribbean people on that.
I know.
So the little cluster on the side street with 300-400 people playing a little jab, that is, very little. It's inconsequential, as a matter of fact. So that's the general point I'm making. You couldn't come on the street, to parade, because you would definitely have a confrontation with the police if you did that.
Yeah. Toro, before the break, Chris was outlining, the dollar value, and he said in the region, I remember 400 million is what it brings. I've heard the conversations over the years about how much money is pumped into Grenadian Carnival. Quite aside and apart from the dollar value, you are from the Carnage, and we know that's where the congregation of the throngs take place. So not seeing the Carnage come alive for you this year, what was that like? And I mean, coming up, listening to Chris, I was like just thinking, Carnage.
Right. I just want to pick up on a couple of things. First, when Chris mentioned the ancillary events that are held before the parade, because in the mind of a lot of people, Toronto Carnival Caribana is the parade. But there are lots of events that take place leading up to the parade. So for instance, one of the big ancillary events is a blockorama that is held by Afropan. And Afropan is the oldest steel band in Toronto. The captain of the band is Trevor Bessie Redhead. He's a Grenadian. He used to play with New Dimensions, right? So Chris is right. There are lots of events that surround the parade and surround the Toronto Carnival. The other thing Harold mentioned about the monies, in the case of Toronto, I think some of the mass bands will have invested monies already. So for instance, you have a band like the defending Band of the Year champion, Luis Saldina. He has 5,000 masqueraders. So, which means that he has to start preparing that band months in advance. Yeah, they have to rent warehouse space to set up their headquarters. So some of the bands will have invested monies already in terms of preparing for the carnival. And for example, it takes about, speaking with the band leaders, it takes about $6,000 to prepare a king or queen of the band. So these bands will have to prepare months in advance. So some will have invested money. The point Odette is making about the monies, there is something strange about Carnival. And I know a lot of people always complain about whether it's the Spice Mass Corporation, whether it's the Carnival Committee in Trinidad, whether it's FMC in Toronto. The problem with Carnival is this. There is a lot of money in Carnival, but the people who organize the festivals, organize the Carnival, do not have access to this money, right? The people who make the money are the businesses that surround the Carnival. So while $400 million is generated into Toronto's Carnival, the people who make that money are the hotels, the taxi drivers, the government of Ontario, the government of Canada. So everywhere there is a carnival, these carnival organizing committees have to find a way to get some of that money pumped back into the festival itself. While the small vendors, like on the Carnage, will make a little money, the bulk of that money goes into the big businesses, and some of them hardly pump anything back into Carnival. So as Carnival goes forward, whether it's in Toronto, New York, London, Trinidad, the Carnival organizing committees, perhaps with the support of the governments, have to find a way for some of that money to be pumped back into the Carnival Festival, or the festivals will face the same problem every year. The performers come into the organizer and say, we need our money, and the organizer saying, we don't have money, we broke. So there is that dichotomy between the festival organizers and the money that is being made from Carnival.
And so, Pepe, we wanted to look at Pan. You're associated with Ebony. We've heard the various panelists referencing Pan. But before we talk about it, let's do a little musical interlude with your band for about 30 seconds, a minute maximum. So, Pepe, tell us a little bit about Ebony and how did COVID impact Panmen, and it's not just limited to Ebony, but Panmen in Grenada could go nowhere this year. There was no panorama. Labor Day, there was no pan on the streets. Toronto Carnival, no pan.
I can speak on Ebony because, well, I can speak on steel bands in general because I'm the president of the Steel Band Association in England. And, after March, all work had closed down. All the bookings we had and other bands had was canceled. Some we're lucky was put back to next year. But we couldn't have done any of the bookings. As a matter of fact, when we started rehearsing for the virtual panorama, we had about 2 weeks to do 4 tunes for the virtual panorama and the road show. And they allowed us back in our center to rehearse for those probably 3 weeks we had. We started rehearsing. Things has eased up a bit now, so we start back rehearsing from this week because we have an album that we're doing. But it has impacted on us a hell of a lot. We lost, a lot of bookings that we had. We have tours. We should have been going to the Netherlands next week, but now we can't go. It's been put on hold because of the COVID thing. So we've lost a lot with this COVID thing. It's done a lot of harm, especially, steel bands like mine, which have been going for 50 odd years, we can cope, but the smaller steel bands, I think, it's hurting a lot.
So I'm sitting here feeling very sad because I had not made the connection, Pepe, we were talking dollars and cents, but your Panmen make your money by these bookings. You travel to Europe and other places. Yeah? So for the season, probably, how much money do you think you've lost?
We turn over in excess of £100,000 in a year. And this year, I can't see us even making, we just done some gigs at the weekend or last weekend, over the Carnival weekend actually. We done some couple of gigs in the city, small gigs, and we done a big gig for Ray and Nephew. And that's it. So I would say this year we're at a total loss. We probably make about 5,000 per year.
Chris, Toronto Carnival and Pan, let's zero in on that a little bit.
Okay, so Pan in Toronto is very vibrant, first of all. We have some very good steel bands, like Toro talked about Afro Pan, we have Panatics, we have Pan Fantasy. We have a number of larger ones and smaller bands here in Toronto. One thing that you need to remember, because we talk about money and stuff like that, culture drives everything that happens here. So most of the people that participate, it's for the love of it, as opposed to generally making a whole set of money. So let's take the myth out of it. We talk about economic impact early on, and economic impact is what happens economically in a city or in an environment where we have such a vibrant culture taking place. But each of those organizations, people get into it because of the love of it. So even Pan, they practice, we have some very innovative groups. One of them called the Pan Arts Network here in Toronto that do stuff in the winter. They do some snowflakes in the winter, or they might do some other events throughout the year that will literally bring in some funds, but literally keep the culture alive through that period of time. And but they have their level of struggles also. They have some funding that comes from the major organization. For instance, the FNC will do funding for these organizations to a certain extent, but a lot of the money comes from their own pockets to make sure that they can keep these events alive. And then when they put on events like the Panel Live, they're literally makes the money from the gates and from everything else that they do there, but it's not a major profit endeavor. So we have to keep it in perspective that a lot of it is culture, in terms of keeping the culture alive. There is, as Toro said early on, that there have to be some movement in terms of the money moving to those organizations that literally put on these events, because if the money goes through them. Pan, very vibrant in Toronto, will last for a very long time. We have a history, 50 years and plus for some of the bands, like Afropan, as Toro talked about early on, and then we have some of the others that have been around for a very long time. But yeah, they had their struggles too. And the points that was made early on in terms of the bands having to prepare early, or the Pan sides or the mass bands or whoever else that we have in Toronto here, we have to plan a year in advance, and 18 months in advance, to make sure that the extravaganza that happens here in Toronto, this vibrant event, it has a lot of planning that goes into that event. So Pan struggles in their own way, but they're still very vibrant and alive here in Toronto.
All right. Well said, succinctly put, Chris, and we see the crossover regardless of where we are. We need to take a commercial break. Harold, we'll come back to you on that point. I know you want to jump in there. But Pepe, your point ties in with a comment made in the CNN article that I'm referencing this evening. And the professor at the University of California, Riversdale, said, and there's a loss and potential loss of work and the capacity to survive. Toro's point about social loss, the loss of social connection due to isolation and social distancing. So we're really connecting some dots here tonight. Interesting discussion here on Beyond the Headlines. We take a commercial break and we'll be right back. How are we coming to New York as soon as we're back from the break?
Whoa! Did you hear that? The National Lotteries Authority's Lotto jackpot is $250,000. Play Lotto today for chances at winning big. Lotto. Play and win a lot of money.
A pleasant evening to everyone. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3111 for today, Monday, September 7th, 2020. I am Anisha Charles. With me this evening is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in a fair, accountable manner, and the game balls with industry standards and in no way tampered with. At this time, she has tickets at hand because we're about to play for a jackpot of $250,000. But first, your free ticket letter. Good luck. Your free ticket letter for this evening is check your tickets. Your free ticket letter for this evening is O as in odd. Let's proceed for 5 winning numbers. Good luck. First number for this evening is check your tickets in the meantime. First number up is 13. Second number is 25, followed by 5. Fourth number up, 3. Fifth and final number. Final number is 28. Let's recap those numbers. Check your tickets. First number up is 13. The second, 25. Third, 5. Followed by 3. Fifth and final is 28. So that's 1, 3, 13, 2, 5, 25, 0, 5, 5, 0, 3, 3, and 2, 8, 28. Your free ticket letter for this evening is O as in odd. Congratulations to all the winners of this evening's Lotto draw. Lotto, play and win a lot. Remember, play all the games of the National Lotteries Authority, support sports, culture, and nation building. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, easy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Welcome to the Surveys platform, consisting of our website, Providers app, and Users app. Whether you are a provider of services or a customer, Surveys has an app for you. Providers can use the Surveys Provider app to reach more customers, improve customer service, and boost their business. Surveys User app gives the public easy, fast and convenient service, and secure payment options for a variety of services. Browse the User app for the services you need, see customer reviews, save your favorite provider, and more. Providers can manage their services from their account, or right from within the app. Both apps are available for Apple and Android mobile devices. Download and install them from our website, surveys.app, or from the app stores now.
Life can be unpredictable, and uncertainties can throw everything out of sync. In spite of life's uncertainties, Grenlec remains committed to providing you with consistent, reliable service. Persistent, outstanding balances disrupt your peace of mind and limit Grenlec's ability to provide the service you depend on. That's why Grenlec is urging all customers to bring your account up to date at this time. Please ensure that you pay your bill in full and continue to pay on time to avoid arrears and the inconvenience of disconnection. Call 237 for 24-hour bill inquiries or contact our customer care team urgently at telephone number 237. Grenlec, energizing our Grenada.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We're looking at COVID and its impact on culture, and we have themed tonight COVID cancels culture. We have panelists this evening from the UK, Toronto, Canada, and New York. Harold, you wanted to jump in on a point before the break.
Yes, I just wanted to jump into the steel band situation that Chris was talking about in Toronto, Canada. As far as Brooklyn, New York is concerned, yes, the steel band movement is alive, albeit around the Labor Day festivities. You know, like Desperados and Rados, an offshoot of Despas, Rados, the defending champion Kazim Steel Orchestra, which came out of a youthful movement of school children's involvement in the band structure here in Brooklyn, New York, Kazim Steel Orchestra. And actually, that Kazim Steel Orchestra was doing much more performances outside of the Labor Day than any other steel band. They did various schools, various cultural presentations around the tri-state area. So I think Kazim must be given special mention here. Panorama in Brooklyn, New York, the people who turn out over the years, much more than you would see in Grenada, except maybe for last year, the year before, when there was a good crowd at Queen's Park for Panorama. I was there and pleasantly surprised by the turnout at Panorama. But in New York on that Friday night, most times chillier, yeah, that's when you really start to put on the light jacket, that Panorama comes to the fore. So I want to salute the pan movement here in Brooklyn, New York. And to me, the biggest event of Panorama, and some people may not agree with me, but the biggest event in Panorama around Labor Day is to visit the pan yards leading up to the Panorama night and be a part of that experience. Pure excitement, looking at the pan men rehearse. If you love pan music, you love the camaraderie. You even love to see the arrangers stopping the pan men and having them start over and identifying a note that went wrong. There's an excitement in that as you go around the various pan houses to experience the preparation leading up to Panorama. So the process is a good one, and I would really hope that this fervor that's in the pan movement in Brooklyn, New York will continue, because if the pandemic is not going to leave us anytime soon, the pan men will suffer immensely as a result of that, because there's no other way for them to prepare than to congregate in large numbers in these warehouses and what have you to prepare for Panorama.
And Toro, as you, over the years before moving on to Toronto, I'm certain as part of the cultural beat with Leslie Pear at the Grenadian Voice, during the Carnival period, I'm certain that Panorama was your beat, no?
Yes, Panorama is big, and I want to concur with Harold in terms of New York. In my view, New York's Panorama is one of the better panoramas anywhere. I've never been to London. Sorry, Pepe. New York is one of the better panoramas, and the line indeed. You meet some of the big arrangers you may only hear about in Trinidad, whether it's the Len Bugsy Sharp, when Clive Bradley was alive, Duvan Stewart. So I agree the pan line is one of the bigger things. Just to make a point about pan and the social impact of COVID, steel bands today in New York, in Grenada as well, are heavily populated by young people. And a lot of these kids have been out of school for many months. And they look forward to the steel band, involvement in the steel band as a relief before school open. And they will be missing that this year, So again, that is one of the social aspect of COVID, the impact it's having on young people. We don't know if it will be a long-term impact, but I'm sure there will be an impact. In terms of steel band in Grenada, I grew up in a steel band family. The steel band was a big part of my life, and I'm always at Panorama, either as a player, a spectator, or a reporter. So steel band is part of my life. I've always been there, and I hope that we can see the steel band music. One of the things I would like to see, while there are a lot of young people playing pan, one of my concerns is that the following people who follow steel band are generally older, aging people. We do not know what happens to the young people once they stop playing pan, maybe after they go to university. But the following for pan everywhere is an older, aging population of people. And I'm also concerned about the steel band organization, associations. In my view, many of them need to professionalize. This idea that you could have an association, whether in sports and culture, and they meet once a year, twice a year, and they have meetings. I think we need to professionalize these associations, and whether I have one person part-time or full-time to do work year-round, whether it's to get sponsorship, whether it's to lobby, whether it's to do whatever. But we need to move these associations to another level, and instead of waiting once a year to have one event or whatever. So there are a few things we need to do, and this is a period with COVID where a lot of events have not been held, or the carnivals, where people involved in the associations should sit back and look at ways to redefine and fine-tune whatever we are doing as we go forward. Because if we do not do that, we'll keep doing these festivals, keep losing money, and other people will keep making money.
If I could, I'm sorry.
I was just going to tell Toro that I think the political landscape is being opened up for him, right? But I want to go to Chris and pick up on a point. But Harold, you go ahead. Harold, go ahead.
No, as you say, but you see, you know, when you mention political landscape, and that brings me to a point that I was thinking of this morning. Not a fortunate situation, but you may have heard that there was a shooting where 5 people were involved. One of them, a 6-year-old boy, all ended up in the emergency room at the Kings County Hospital, but all reports that they will be fine. Over the years, at Labor Day, you have ancillary crime. That's crime that happens in the adjacent streets, and the media has the tendency to report it in such a way that it is Labor Day Carnival, West Indian American Day Carnival violence, when in fact it's very seldom the actual violence takes place on the parade route. This year, there you had on the supposedly Juve morning, that was cancelled of course, you had this incident. And I looked at the papers and I looked at it and I said, there you go again. One of the reports said that the violence this morning happened during the Juve morning activities, you know, at the in the West Indian community. I said, what Juve morning? There's no Juve. Juve is officially cancelled. This is violence proper, unfortunately, that happens in New York City. This is the usual New York City violence, but you see the inclination to put that West Indian American Juve morning, you know, a ring to it, to give the impression it's violence because of people who supposedly play in mass. When there is no mass, mass officially is cancelled. But of course, there's the racial aspect of it too, to malign the parade, because there's one politician in Long Island who vehemently came out and says that when the official announcement was made that there will be no West Indian American Day Carnival this year because of COVID, the politician said to ban it entirely because it always incites violence, when in fact that is not correct. What would he say about the violence that happened this morning, now that it is cancelled? You see? So sad to say, violence, yes, but it's the normal everyday violence that happens in life in New York City.
And I think,
by
Pepe,
reports are indicating
if we go to Pepe,
that
he would also tell us that that's an issue in the UK.
Gang-related.
But Harold, you're opening up a can of worms which would make a whole program all by itself, because we think in the UK, Notting Hill Carnival has that whole issue as well. We're quickly running out of time and we have to start wrapping it up. And I just had a couple questions I wanted to get through before we wrap up tonight. Do you get a sense of dejection as people adopt a wait-and-see kind of mode? And Chris, we're coming to you first on that one. What's the future looking like?
Well, we have it's across the world now, so it's not just Carnival, it's COVID in a sense. The perception of what will happen with COVID, where will it take, what the pivot is going to be. We as organizations have to start thinking, okay, not going back to what we thought will happen, but trying to adapt to what the new environment will take, and seeing how the word that's used is pivot, how we can pivot to this new culture, worldwide culture, in terms of how do you approach festivals, how do you approach large gathering, how do you approach everything along the line that would lead to this sort of carnival culture that we have here right now. People are concerned because we talked about economic impact. And remember, money drives a lot of things. People look forward to what it brings. And tourism is a huge part of our carnival here in Toronto, because as I said early on, organic tourism, we bring the most tourists into the city, especially around that period of the year. And people are looking forward to that. Now, how do you change it? How do you adjust to that? Would there be some sort of a virtual or viral virtual carnival taking place within the concept? Do we have to do things throughout the year as opposed to just one time in the year? We have to start looking at it totally differently and how we approach it. And the carnival itself takes all the different aspects of it, whether it's calypso, whether, and when we talk about calypso, but we have to think about soca, which is a big part of the music, and chutney, and all these are part of the musical part of the carnival. And then you look at pan, because I mean, as Toro said, Pan in Grenada and other places, because I cut my teeth around Pan too. I lived in Lucas Street, going to the Pan there. I lived in St. Paul's where the Comancheros. All these things that are happening here where we start thinking about Pan as another part of the culture. How do they move that apart from just a large crowd? And then the mass, which is a big parade that happens over the period of time. Yes, people are worried about it. People are concerned in terms of what do we do, but people are innovative. And I think if you look back to see what happens on a day-to-day basis, people find a way to make things happen, and the culture will have to adapt to it. So let's not think about, okay, well, we've lost this and nothing's going to happen again. We have to start thinking beyond where we are right now, and how can we move with the changes to make sure that, two, it's monetized, there's an impact that's taking place as we move forward, but the culture stays alive. Because as much as we talk about the culture as an economic piece, there's a culture that we have to make sure that our West Indian culture, whether it's mass band, calypso, food, we didn't talk a lot about food and the other aspects that's part of this carnival culture. We have to make sure that we bring them all in, pull them together, and then start communicating, learn from each other. So for instance, what we do in Toronto is literally about our city here in Toronto, but there's a spill off that takes place in Brooklyn, because a lot of the people come to Toronto from New York. We get a lot of visitors from New York. We come to New York also. People go to London. In fact, we had an exchange program with London over a period of years with Calypso. You probably know about that. And so these are the things that we have to start looking forward to and saying, okay, how do we adjust? How do we plan for the future? And I think now is the time to do it, because nobody knows what the future is going to hold. And we talk about the vaccine and a number of different things. We have to decide exactly what does it look like and come up with ideas that we can move that culture forward and move the ball down the road.
Great. And Toro, at the opening of the innings, did speak about social loss. Toro, so you saw what panned out in some villages in Grenada, although Carnival was cancelled. What are your thoughts on what transpired here? The issue becoming a very big one in Parliament, and people being told that, there were demons in St. Patrick's.
Yeah. Well, first of all, on the health aspect of it, I think people should take the COVID more seriously. And they should refrain from large gatherings, wear the mask, social distancing. On another level, I see what happened also as part of a tension that has been taking place in Carnival for many, many years. I've always argued that we're trying to make Carnival into an animal that it was never meant to be, and how that will be resolved is something that we'll have to look to the future. So for instance, when the Africans were freed and Carnival began, it was an opportunity for them to let their hair down. It was a free-for-all. Today, Carnival is expected to do many things. It's supposed to be a free-for-all. It's supposed to be packaged so that it doesn't offend the sense and sensibility of whether it's the local religious community, whether it's tourists. We don't want, it's supposed to make profit for everybody, for the organizers, for the performers, for businesses, small, medium, and large. I don't think Carnival was set up to do all of that. The other thing is that the Carnival has moved into being a multi-million-dollar business. But the infrastructure to move that Carnival has never kept up with the Carnival itself. So as I was saying at the beginning, there's a tension going on, and that tension has to be resolved. At the moment, Carnival is always winning. No matter what we do every year, we have this. So we have to find a way to resolve that tension between where we go with this Carnival. I don't want to sound pessimistic. In my view, that's what needs to be resolved. All right, Ken?
So, who wants to follow through? Pepe, you want to come in, or Harold?
With the Grenada Carnival situation, my take all along has been very simple in terms of what happened this year. We in a pandemic. I do not accept the saying that Grenada is COVID-free. And I always had reservations of the official saying we are COVID-free. We are COVID-free based on what? Based on the amount of people that got tested that showed to be negative, and those who were positive, they got cured. But has everybody been tested? So I never bought that. And I think that the consciousness amongst the people should realize that, listen, man, we really don't know how many people in Grenada are with COVID who are asymptomatic and what have you. So based on that and the protocols with social distancing, I did not support that we should have that amount of congregation for Carnival Monday and Tuesday. I did not support what happened to Juve mornings with the amount of people I see on the road coming out. I did not support that at all from a pure health perspective. I know people are putting all kind of political perspectives to it based on which party they support, which party they don't support, and people making a stand and people protesting and whatever have you. Okay, well, I respect your view, but my view is to look at it from a purely health perspective. We are in a pandemic. We have to respect the social distancing protocols. What I saw on the road during Carnival, I do not support that at all whatsoever. And take it from you, hearing that from a Carnival Jumbie. Okay? But the fact is, you have to be cognizant of the times in which we live in. But then again, that being said, when I saw the people on the streets, as much as I did not support it, I would like to, commend the police for keeping the cool and just let the process unravel in the interest of peace and safety for all in this period of time. So I think the police handled it very, very well. But I did not support that cluster, that congregation at all.
Right, so we're wrapping it up, and I'm going to wrap up with comments out of Toronto and the UK because we just had Harold and Toro. So let's see, Pepe, we're giving you some 30 seconds to make some closing comments this evening.
All I can say is I hope the pandemic is over as soon as possible, and we are reassured by the government and the police that we will have Carnival on the streets in Nottingham next year, all being well, and I look forward to it.
Chris, your closing thoughts?
Well, first of all, thanks for bringing this topic to life. We're in a new era. Things are going to change. We have to remember that constant is change. And what's happening today, as Toro was saying earlier on, Harold was saying also, that we have to make sure that we adapt to the new, what we call the new norm. Carnival has not been what it is today. There's an expectation of Carnival today, or even the whole cultural aspect of what it should be. Let us pull our minds together. Let's continue to communicate together, share best practices and ideas, and decide how we can keep our culture alive. Because it's from the Caribbean, it's a historical piece that we have to deal with on an ongoing basis. And all of the genres, whether it's mass, pan, or calypso, those people, we have to give kudos to those people, the people who have put on the bands and stuff like that. Sometimes we talk about just the events and the organizations, but we have to give credit to the actual artists and artisans who put these things on, because they're the ones that need to get a lot of the credit for what's going on. So I shout them out today. I thank them for what they do on an ongoing basis, and to be here and looking forward to another great few years coming up for Carnival. And thank you for having this show this evening.
And Odette, before you go, I want to say it's been great being here, and to let you know that Chris is my old classmate, from Heinz and GVSS, and it's great seeing him after some years now. And we're not getting older, Chris, we're only getting wiser.
Getting better.
And of course, Toro, colleague forever.
All right, amen.
and Pepe, it's nice seeing you, and God bless, man.
Yeah, nice seeing all of you.
So let me just do this quick round robin, right? You all have 5 seconds
he's still tuning for us.
All right.
You all just have 5 seconds to just tell Grenada and the world, because we are crossing geographical boundaries, what's your connection to Grenada, where you're from. 5 seconds, gentlemen. We're starting with Toro.
Carolina, it's a wharf.
Chris?
3 places: Lucas Street, Woodlands, and St. Paul's.
Harold?
Tempe, St. George's.
And Pepe?
Born in St. David's, family from Guam.
All right.
And was this Trinidadian claiming now? Was this Trinidadian route you're claiming now?
I grew up in Trinidad.
Trinity by boat.
Just teasing you. This is where we put a wrap on Beyond the Headlines. Another interesting production here this evening. I have learned a lot from the program. We've heard from local perspectives about Carnival and the cost and the revenues associated therewith, but we have heard an international spin on it, and has been very intriguing. Just before we go, I want to say a very special thank you to the various persons who helped to assemble tonight's panel, and it has proven to be very rewarding. I want to say a very special thank you to Ken Youngblood out of the UK, and one of the things we heard Pepe say is that he has never missed the Labor Day celebrations in the United States, and Ken did say that this is the first time, I believe, in 34 or 35 years that he has not been to Grenada in the summer. So we are looking at various ways in which COVID has impacted our various lives. So once again, in case you joined us late, we've had with us broadcaster Harold Pysadee, journalist Lincoln Toro Depradine. We have Mr. Chris Alexander, Chief Operating Officer, the Festival Management Committee, Toronto Caribbean Carnival, and also Mr. Augustin Pepe Francis, MBE of the Ebony Steel Orchestra. He is the leader of the Ebony Steel Orchestra in London, United Kingdom. This has been another edition of Beyond the Headlines. We are crossing geographical boundaries and we're breaking barriers. Thank you so much to our loyal listeners and viewers for joining us. On behalf of the entire production team here at the GBN, I'm your host, Odette Campbell, saying thank you for joining with us, and we'll see you again next week. See you around.